Good morning, friends. Pastor Chuck Blair here from New Church Live. Great to have you joining me this morning for our little 10 minutes of morning calm. And what we're doing today is we're continuing on with our little Lenten piece, which is Lent is the 40 days leading up to Easter. And we do a little reading every day out of a lectionary, in other words, out of a standard set of readings, and offer a little observation on that as we get ready for Easter here. So friends, what I'd love to start with is this is again, just I want to just touch base super quickly on just the integral nature of the Easter story. I mean, the whole New Testament really pivots around the Easter story, and in our culture, we think it pivots around Christmas, and Christmas is beautiful and wonderful and all that, and takes the primary seat in Western culture. But with the original church founders, with the Christian ancestry, Easter was the big deal. And you just look at the scope of the treatment of it in the four gospels, hugely weighted towards Easter. And actually the Christmas stories, not a whole lot is said. I mean, it's a pretty simple, basic story. Easter, boy, it goes on and on about that particular time because it's so significant and really is what anchors the Christian story in its deepest of truths. So what we're looking at today is a fascinating part, and it's part of, I think, the Easter story, because it's like, how are we going to accept God into our life? How are we going to welcome God? And it's a very famous passage, probably a lot of you have heard before, and it's this one. And Jesus said, "Ask and you will receive; seek and you will find; knock and it will be open to you." So there's a trine there. Ask and you're going to get it. Seek and you'll find it. Knock and it will be open to you. Oh, there's a beautiful piece there, folks, that I love in terms of it puts the action on us. In other words, that we have to actually take some steps in our life. Like, we actually have to take responsibility for our spiritual lives. And that's where comfort, again, like, comfort's the booby prize. Like, there's nothing terribly comfortable about the spiritual life. And yet it is something that's incredibly enriching, and adds a lot of meaning to our lives. And what I'd want us to think about, when I was thinking about this morning, is in doing some reading, is thinking about this basic thing. Like, when we ask, seek, and knock, like, so much of our lives is based on power and effectiveness. How do I become more powerful in my life? That's big. And you just look at advertisements, right? They're all in some way about becoming more powerful. So I'll become more powerful in my life. And then the second part, very closely connected to it, is effectiveness. And a lot of the time we ask, seek, and knock, thinking like, I'm going to try to open this spiritual door, and maybe it will help me feel empowered. Maybe it'll help me more effective in my life. It'll help me feel like I've got it figured out. And when we ask, seek, and knock, I think it's real important to know that that's probably not what we're going to find on the other side of this, right? I don't know that the spiritual life is something that's going to leave you, leave me, leave any of us feeling more powerful, or even that we've got a system that somehow makes us more effective at life. I think what we find is, when we knock on the door from the right spirit, from a service filled, from a grace filled spirit, is we find the truth. We find the truth, and the truth will make you free. And the truth is embodied in Jesus. The truth is embodied in what we call in New Church circles, the Lord. And we find that connection of divinity and human, the divine and the human coming together. And that's what it looks like. Now, that doesn't always look like effectiveness, and it certainly doesn't always look like power. And what would be examples of that? Well, this morning, just thinking about that, my mind goes back to when I was a public school teacher, and there was a wonderful eighth grade teacher by the name of Wanda Buzzard. And Wanda was just a few years older than me, but she was much wiser than I was. And she just kept on plugging with teaching. I mean, she wanted to have the most challenging, difficult students. She didn't want a lot of fanfare. She just wanted to keep on working. And when my school district actually broke apart, sort of separated out a deeply special needs school for kids who were really having a lot of behavioral issues, for whom a bigger school wasn't working terribly well. Of course, Wanda volunteered for that, just in her own quiet way. And And that, I think, is that truth. It's not it's like she clearly wasn't, pushed by effectiveness or pushed by power. I mean, you work with kids who are struggling at that level. They're going to probably continue to struggle throughout their schooling career and probably continue to struggle through life just because there's so many forces at play there. And clearly it's not about power. You're not going to feel empowered that way. But what you will feel is you will feel useful. You will feel like you are somehow living in the truth. You will ask, seek, and find something that is the pearl of great price, that is almost impossible for me to even put words around. But right, we've all known people like that. We've all known people who just have that quiet courage and perseverance about them where they've discovered something. They've asked, they seek, they knock, and they've discovered something. Even this morning, like getting ready, I was thinking about this other person I was having a conversation with, and she was mentioning just how she had taken care of her husband. Her husband since passed, and in taking care of her husband, she was sort of gobsmacked a little bit, like, and she said, and he told me, like, I can't believe what good care you take of me. Like, those are some of his last things he said to her. Through tears, he said that, and he was so appreciative. And I thought, yeah, she asked, she seeks, she knocks. She wasn't looking for power and effectiveness. She was just doing what she was doing as God gave her to see it. This tender service part. And what do you receive on the back end of that? Boy, there's hardly words for. I don't have any words for it. There's just something that washes over us. And when I hear these stories, there's something that washes over me that goes, "Oh yeah, that's what's true. That's actually it. That's actually what it is to be a Christian." And I think it's where we share this church universal, because I think it's what it is to be a good Muslim or a good Jew. You fill in the blank. Yeah. So, folks, today it's again, it's we talk about Easter being a descent, and think about that part of the descent too. That part of the descent that says, yeah, there's times where we have to talk about power, and there's times where we have to talk about effectiveness. But don't make that the whole game. Understand that there's another truth that's even greater than those things, and may feel actually not as relevant as those. Isn't that crazy? But actually, in the end, is the most relevant thing to our lives, because I think that's what calls us home. That's what we know to be true at its deepest level, and that's what God, I think, is inspiring us to be. And that's where we start to pray to know, to know that. So I hope that lands with you folks. I hope that's helpful for your thought for today. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little prayer, excuse me, a little meditation, a little prayer, a little blessing, and then we'll be saying hi to some of the folks who've joined us on some different formats. And again, just a reminder, if I don't manage to say something, it's just because I'm technologically not up to speed, and I have a hard time seeing all the comments. So my apologies ahead of time. With that, dear friends, let's all get a big breath. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and bring you peace and bring you home. Amen. All right, dear friends. So let's take a look at some comments here, offer some quick responses to folks. I don't know what I figured out today, but somehow it worked really well. Betty writes, "Good morning. Finally catching a live meditation level out. There's so much power and peace. Uh, oops. There's so much power in peace and finding our way there." Betty, that is beautiful. And yeah, that's really beautiful. So much, yeah. Having a little technical trouble here. Uh, Susan writes, "Yeah, me too. Been too busy, and it is kind of interesting." Yeah, Susan, right? Like it just there's what is urgent and what's important, and I think I need to remind myself of that all the time. Marcus, good morning to you, buddy. Great to see you joining us. Rita and Patricia, as always, good morning to you folks, and thank you for joining us. Great to see you. Linda, great to have you joining us this morning. Look, Linda writes, "Looking forward to tomorrow night's dinner visit and chat." It's super fun, and I'm game to do this anytime. Like Linda has a crew, and we get together for dinner here at the office once a month, and we talk about life and eat good food. And usually, I throw a discussion question out there if people want that. But it's a ton of fun, and yeah, more than welcome. Folks want to take a look at doing that in other venues? Be totally glad. Carl writes, "Seeking, finding, no small thing." Carl, you are absolutely right, especially when trying to be still. And blessing to all the search effort. Yeah, and it is this beautiful thing, and it's not even when we ask and we seek and we knock. It's always sort of a little surprise because I ask thinking what I am asking for. I think I know what I'm asking for, and then I open the door and Jesus gives a much better answer. And it's always a different answer than what I had anticipated, which makes me giggle. Gene, good morning to you, my friend. And Gene, I was just on a call with another person from Maryland last night. And I was thinking, man, I got to head down to Maryland soon. Paige writes, "Good morning," and good morning to you, Paige. Mary writes, "Power is dangerous for me because I can start falling into believing that I'm in control instead of accepting God's will. Nothing fruitful in that. However, accepting God's will and going with that flow creates an ease and peace in this rocky road of life." It's so true. I mean, it's one I'm sure I'm going to bring up here eventually, Mary. I was playing around with some sermon ideas for down the road, and one of the ones is that trying to see God as not planning our life, but God is holding our life. Because when I say God is planning my life, my ego gets right in there right away. And it's like, oh, it becomes this power trip. And really, I substitute my plans. I just say, well, my plans, they're obviously God's plans too. And they're just not. They're just not. And trying to get to that softer place is, I think, super, super critical. Yeah, so lots of good thoughts there. So folks, there were some wonderful thoughts, and I so appreciate you joining me and I every morning, and I just wish you all the very best. And my dearly beloved friends, we will see you again tomorrow. And yeah, tears to a little prayer to quote unquote no today. We will see you tomorrow. Bye bye.